Avengers. Infinite Wars Chapter 4. How do we explain this? To say that Steve Rogers would have a grasp as to where they were going and what they were doing would be a straight lie. He, Sam Wilson and Scott Lang sat within the personal quarters of one Anakin Skywalker, aboard the man's personal Venator Star Destroyer, named the Resolute. And apparently they were on their way right now to another planet called Coruscant, the heart and capital world of the Republic. After brief introductions were made back on Naboo, the Avengers stated that they were from another planet called Earth, and made it clear to the GD, clones and senators, that they unfamiliar with space travel, the galaxy and its current state of affairs. The conversation was short, though it was clear that it would achieve nothing. Ila Secura then suggested it would be better if they all returned to Coruscant. Seeing merit in the idea as well as a chance to get the senators back to a more secure and safer world, the GD had agreed, and now here they were. They had been relatively silent, keeping their thoughts to themselves, though certain signs of nervousness and wariness were easy to pick up on. Scott's jittery shaking of his legs while Sam had taken to assessing his suit's functions in order to make sure they were working at peak efficiency. Steve in turn had taken to pulling out a small little notebook with a pencil clipped to it, and began sketching whatever came to mind. Beginning a rough sketch of a body, he was interrupted from the process suddenly when doors to the room opened. In walked in that young alien girl, Ahsoka Tano. All three silently regarded her, waiting for her to say something, which actually made the young Padawan slightly uncomfortable at receiving such intense stares. She nervously massaged her wrist. "We're exiting hyperspace and arriving at Coruscant in a bit. Do you want to come see?" Steve and Sam exchanged a glance, with the latter shrugging, conveying a silent expression of "we've got nothing better to do." Getting up to follow Ahsoka, the group walked past many clones, all going about their duties and business. They received passing glances at most, with a few lingering on them. Some couldn't help but comment. "Is that them?" "Yeah, those three who fought off the clankers on Naboo. I saw some holo recordings. They're crazy. Wish I was down there to see it. Looks like you guys are already famous." Ahsoka couldn't help but comment, making Steve shrug. "Didn't mean to be," Steve remarked. "You guys helped save a lot of lives on Naboo," Ahsoka said, suddenly growing more serious with a show of admiration. "Senators Amidala and Organa spoke of how many clones and civilians survived thanks to your efforts. It's not like we were just gonna stand by and let people get bombed like that," Sam said good-naturedly. "It was a festival after all, from what we saw." "Oh, you guys were at a festival?" Scott slightly whined out. "I got mistaken for an intruder at the palace." "Wouldn't be the first time now, would it?" Sam japed, making Scott laugh in a strained manner, while Steve only let out a HMPH of amusement. Ahsoka gazed back at them curiously before looking forward once more just as they entered the bridge of the ship. There she saw her master, Rex, Obi-Wan, Cody, Ila, Bly and Senators Amidala and Organa, all standing around the holo table in deep conversation when they noticed their arrival. "Ahsoka." Anakin greeted his Padawan before eyeing the three men behind her. "Ah, the conquering heroes," Obi-Wan said, nodding to the Avengers. "I hope you are all faring well enough," Padme said. "As well as we can be," Steve admitted honestly. "Is this truly the first time any of you had ever left your homeworld?" Ila couldn't help but ask suddenly, truly finding this rather fascinating. "Aside from Thor, none of us back on our planet had ever gone into space," Steve explained. "We were always kind of aware of life beyond our world, but never thought we'd be going up here anytime soon," Sam stated. "That's rather strange," Obi-Wan mused. "You mentioned this Thor individual is the only one amongst you who can achieve space travel." "Not in the way you guys are used to," Steve said. "What does that mean?" Ahsoka asked. "That's a bit difficult to explain properly," Sam said truthfully. "Mostly cause we ourselves don't really understand how it functions," Steve added on. A momentary awkward silence permeated between them all until Scott then chimed in. "What's this Coruscant place we're going to right now?" "Coruscant," Rex murmured, looking to his clone brethren who only shrugged in response. "Coruscant," Ila corrected. "It is the heart and core world of the Republic and the GD Order. The center point of galactic civilization, one could say." "What's it like?" Sam asked. He got a response in the form of a clone pilot notifying them all. "Exiting hyperspace, generals." "Well, how about you see it first?" Ahsoka said mischievously, nudging the ex-criminal. Soon enough, the blue tunnel that was faster than light travel ended abruptly as a planet with many ships surrounding it, quite literally stretched into full view. All three Earthers blinked at the effect with their eyes widening. "This is Coruscant," Obi-Wan said. "The entire planet is one large encompassing city connected by many means with many levels across the entire planet." "Unreal," Scott blurted out, jaw dropping slightly as the Venator went past the defense fleet of the planet and down to the surface. Soon, the city became more distinct and clear, along with the many flying vehicles, tall skyscrapers and gigantic landmarks that could be seen in any and all directions. All around them were ships whizzing by, and if one looked closely enough, the dozens of alien species that populate this galaxy could also be seen piloting these flying cars. "Tony would love to see this place," Steve said in wonder, making both his companions nod in agreement. "That Hank would too. This is insane. That right there is where the Senate of the Republic meets." Senator Organa pointed over to a large building shaped in what the Avengers could only describe as large metallic mushroom, with another dome-shaped building more to the ground beside it. "And where we're going," Obi-Wan picked up for Organa, "is the GD Temple, the seat of the GD Order." "You keep on mentioning this GD Order," Steve spoke up. "That you yourselves are all GD and members to this organization. What is it exactly?" "I think that it would be best suited if the entire council were present to explain to you, but to put it simply, GD are the peacekeepers of the Galactic Republic overall, as is our duty to the galaxy and to the Force," Obi-Wan said in a lecture-like manner. "Peacekeepers, huh?" Steve said to himself, thinking back to Earth and its most recent conflicts. "We're arriving," Anakin said. "Come on, the rest of the council and chancellor should be waiting for us." They all followed after the GD, and soon arrived down to one of the many docking bays that had been customized near the GD Temple to accommodate for larger ships, such as the Venator-class Star Destroyers. Soon all were transported within 2 lot gunships to another hangar bay, this one being directly linked in with the temple. Landing there, the Avengers were greeted with sight of an additional collective of some of the strangest beings they had ever laid eyes on. Yet none of them mattered, as all three Earthers saw one man that made their hearts stop and jaws drop. "Fury," Steve said aloud in disbelief, walking right up to what he could only describe to be the former head of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s Doppelganger. Said Doppelganger could only step back, startled at how close this strange man had just come up to him. "Excuse me. Alright, are we in space? Or another reality?" Sam then spoke up, now looking to the other bewildered GD and senators. "Or is this some kind of elaborate test set up by Fury and his guys? I wouldn't put it past him, honestly. That would even explain the eye patch. Maybe we went through some quantum mumbo-jumbo," Scott said, squinting his eyes at the Fury look-alike. It was at this point that Doppelganger got his bearings together and asked, "Do you know me? Because I certainly do not know you." Breaking out of his momentary trance, Steve began to realize he had caused a bit of a scene, so instead he pulled out his own phone. Well, it showed no signal. That wasn't what Steve was going for. He had his own separate files downloaded there, along with a few that apparently Tony had placed there just in case. What in God's name was Monty Python? Question for another time. Finding what he was looking for, Steve held it up to the man before him. "Does this look familiar to you by any chance?" Steve asked. The Fury look-alike squinted at what he was staring at, widening his eyes slightly before giving Rogers a slight glare. "What is this?" he asked. The picture was of him with an eye patch, shaking hands with another elderly Caucasian individual, both wearing strange attires that he had not once ever wore. "That," Steve began slowly, "is Colonel Nick Fury, from Earth. So that leaves us with the question of who are you?" It was at this point another decided to make his presence known. "Many questions we all have, yes." All heads turned to a small green imp-like creature hobbling towards both Rogers and the Fury look-alike with a cane. "Questions better answered together, It spoke strangely with a voice conveying a layer of age-gained wisdom. "Master Windu has questions more personal now, he does. As do we all." "I do say I wasn't expecting that," said a kindly elderly voice. Steve turned to see an aged human with regal set of clothes standing behind this Windu person, eyeing the screen he still held up with great interest and slight astonishment. "Master Windu, have you been living a double life we are not aware of?" the elderly man asked in humor. "That quite possibly might be the case," Windu replied, eyes still on the phone screen until Rogers at last put it away. "Be that as it may." The elderly man then turned to Steve and gave him a pleasant smile. "Greetings to you, Captain Steve Rogers. I have heard much about you, but let me just say and personally thank you in your noble defense of my home planet of Naboo. You have put a great deal of ease upon this old man's heart. It is a pleasure to meet you. My name is Sheev Palpatine." Holding out a hand, Cap accepted it, giving him a firm shake. Steve Rogers. He introduced himself. Though you already knew that. Yes, my fellow Naboo Senator Amidala spoke of you and your companions' brave and valiant actions on our homeworld. Palpatine said softly, a show of admiration. Truly heroic of you. Think nothing of it, sir. Cap said humbly. Just doing our duty. Speaking of duty. Windu cut in. I think it is high time we all got some answers as to what happened on Naboo. Yes, the small green alien said solemnly. Much to discuss, we have. The Force calls to us, directing towards you it does. Sam and Scott shared a look while Steve stared down at the green creature. We'd like answers of our own. Steve stated firmly. Something about an intergalactic war that we apparently roped ourselves into. Then let's find a place more comfortable for us all. Obi-Wan stepped in. I'd rather us not stand around here for another few hours with one revelation after another with no explanation. Agreed, was the collective response. All were now present within a spacious meeting room of sorts within the GD temple. It was ovular in shape with steps elevating upwards acting as seats for many. Steve, Sam and Scott were officially introduced to the GD High Council. The council consisted itself of Grandmaster Yoda, the small green creature. Mace Windu, the Fury look-alike. Obi-Wan Kenobi, whom they have already met. Then of course were the more unique humanoids such as Coyote with a large condom-shaped head. Sam murmured to himself something about Dan Aykroyd, garnering a look from Steve wherein Sam only held his hands up, signifying don't mind me. Scott however got the reference, and they somehow managed a discreet fist bump. Next came the equally aquatic green, tentacle-headed Kit Fisto, who held a disarming mischievous grin. Followed by Plo Koon wearing a strange respirator mask-type contraption. Then was a dark-skinned woman with a strange headpiece that was akin to a crown of sorts named Adi Gallia. And lastly was the strangest one of them all, the one named Aporan Sysis, an alien with a bushy long beard, elongated fingernails and a snake-like body from the waist down. 3 GD Council members however were apparently absent. The ones referred to as Eth Koth, Shakti, CC Tin and even Peel. All were off-world conducting their own missions in the war effort. Introduced ourselves, we have. Yoda spoke for the collective GD, clones and senators. The same in turn, you do. Right. Steve nodded. So some of you already know, but in full, my name is Steve Rogers. Back on our homeworld I'm also known as Captain America. Captain America? Isla said in confusion. That seems more akin to a title if anything. So your captain rank was for show? Anakin asked. Don't mind humble here. Sam butted in, not allowing Steve a chance to explain. This guy here is a captain legitimately. Captain America is the name of the country we come from on Earth. He basically represents the best of what we can all be. Our world's first superhero. Scott added chipperly while Steve hung his head a bit from not being able to explain it in his own way. Superhero? Obi-Wan questioned with a raised brow. We all are. Scott proclaimed until slumping a bit. Well, these 2 guys are. I'm more of an ex-convict who got a lucky break. A pause. Oh, Scott Lang, Ant-Man. Lieutenant Sam Wilson. Other codename is Falcon. More silence. Ahsoka was speaking for all when she said, what? Aside from you names and hearing you guys say you're heroes. That's all we really did say. Sam pointed out. Look, we don't exactly know how to condense a lot of craziness down to span of about 20 minutes so. Take your time then. Obi-Wan said, now seating himself. We have some to spare at this very moment. Glancing at one another, Sam and Scott both gestured for Steve to start for them. Nodding, Steve faced the GD Council, clones and senators. To put it plainly, myself along with Sam and Scott here are part of a team called the Avengers. Earth's mightiest heroes. Steve said with a hint of pride. We were formed as a fast-acting response team in the face of an overwhelming threat, an enemy no lone hero could face alone. Each individual both present and past came from different walks of life, each with different agendas, personalities and egos. And we had some real big egos. Sam said knowingly, making Steve snort actually. It wasn't easy at first. Steve said plainly. I myself know that as the original iteration of the team nearly clashed with each other on just our first meetings alone. I feel like a lot is missing here. Anakin interrupted aloud. We could show you. Scott said, pulling out his phone. But we don't got any signal here. What is that anyway? Ahsoka asked. It's one of our forms of communication on our planet. Sam said, holding up his own phone. A literal multi-purpose device that can help you communicate with friends and family, listen to music, look up information and so on. Many looked on impressed and slightly awed. Now that they thought about it, they can't really think of something like that for themselves, save for perhaps maybe their holo tables and communicators, but these felt a little different. We're getting off topic, Mace Windu said somewhat irritably. This isn't about us getting to know each other and our civilizations. This is also about the how you are here, as well as the fact that the Force gave a seismic warning shortly before we heard about all of you. Excuse me, generals. It was at this point the relatively silent Captain Rex spoke up. That whole episode involving all of you nearly passing out and giving us collective heart attacks. You're all saying, or really implying that it may have something to do with them. Possibility is high, yes. Yoda announced. The Force speaks to us, it does. These three surrounds them, it does. But I feel nothing from them. Obi-Wan said, squinting his eyes at them. The Force surrounds them, yes, now I can feel it. Yet, from them directly, from their very being I feel nothing. Okay, now we're confused here. Sam interjected. What the hell are you guys talking about? What's this Force stuff supposed to be? Sounds like some video game stuff, honestly. Scott said. Have any of you guys played an RPG before? It feels that the more we talk, the more questions seem to pop up. Palpatine said humorously to Amidala and Organa, making both chuckle. And at an exponential rate, mind you. All conversation ended when Grandmaster Yoda slammed his cane down to the floor, expunging a kind of force wave which effectively silenced all. Calm ourselves, we must. Yoda said sagely. And from the beginning we must start. Captain Rogers, if you may. Giving a respectful nod, Steve, along with the help of Scott and Sam, went on to give a decently detailed explanation of just who they were. From personal stories to an extent to the eventual formation of the Avengers and the catalyst to the event, Steve was the primary speaker in regards to it all. During this time, he had inquired if the GDR senators had heard of the species known as the Chitauri, or of the alien civilization called Asgard, along with its denizens of Thor, Loki and Odin. When they received negative responses, Steve moved on. When? Who is this Thor fellow exactly you speak of then? Obi-Wan inquired curiously. You have spoken of him several times as being the only one amongst this team of yours to achieve spacefaring capabilities. It's more than that, Steve said. Thor's people have been spacefaring for thousands of years apparently, and he can do so as well with many ways. And he's also God. Sam threw out casually, making all blink and slowly turn their heads to him. I beg your pardon. Plo Koon had now spoken. What do you mean by that when you say, he's also God? Right, well that's exactly as Sam said. Steve said. Thor is a god where we come from and too many other realms. He's the god of thunder to be precise. God of thunder? Ahsoka asked, trying to understand what he had exactly said. Oh, I got something that might help. Scott fiddled with his phone when suddenly a holo screen appeared from his phone, making him gape momentarily. Whoa, I forgot this was upgraded. Scott. Right. Scott went through his phone's videos and brought up the one he was looking for. It was captured videos of Thor in action in the Battle of New York, along with the original lineup of the Avengers. Why do you have all that in your phone? Sam couldn't help but ask in bewilderment. Actually, we should have just started with that now that I think about it. You can thank Peanut for that. Cassie put them all there. Scott said bashfully. She really loves you guys, you know. Wants me to know how much she loves that you guys got me and hope to join. At the mention of Hope and Cassie, Scott abruptly grew more somber, with his face falling into a more crestfallen mood. Sam and Steve frowned themselves, but the former patted his friend's shoulder. Chin up, tic-tac, Sam assured. We'll find Hope and the others and get you home to your little Peanut. Scott gave Sam an appreciative smile, looking back to the patient audience, and playing the various clips of Avengers' first outing in the city of Manhattan, as they fought against the alien menace they identified earlier as the Chitauri. To say that the GD, senators and clones were stunned to a degree would be understating their reaction. They were witnessing an alien invasion of a planet where only a Group 6 extraordinary beings held back the army, for as long as they were capable of. Captain Rogers was easy to spot as they witnessed him in a different, more form-fitting and tighter attire, combating the alien humanoids with extreme effectiveness and skill, throwing his shield around with ease and precision. Then there were the other Avengers. The woman they called Black Widow fought with a great deal of ferocity, utilizing her entire body as a weapon, along with some kind of electric shock gauntlets, small slug throwers, and even the Chitaurus weapons against them. Next came Clint Barton aka Hawkeye. His skill with the bow were on full display, showing an acute awareness of not only his surroundings, but the entire battlefield as well. It seemed that he had his eyes on a dozen places at once, as he fired off arrow after arrow in what seemed to be different directions, yet each hit with such precision and expertise, it almost looked impossible. And he did it most of the time without even looking. His level of awareness could be better compared to a truly honed and trained GD master. From there, it seemed to get crazier with the God of Thunder, swinging a hammer at insurmountable speeds, and calling upon literal thunderbolts and storms, and laying waste to all who opposed him. His strength was completely overwhelming, and half of everyone's jaws dropped at seeing this Thor individual single-handedly kill off a leviathan of an alien, with a mighty blow of his thunder-infused hammer. Then there was the being that was pure rage incarnate, Bruce Banner's alter ego the Hulk. His pure strength alone was something that all present aside from the Avengers couldn't even fathom. He too accomplished the feat of taking down one of those gigantic building-sized flying beasts with a single punch. And lastly was Tony Stark, the Iron Man. His suit was a sight to behold as he flew round the city, blasting away at the Chitauri. There was even a point where someone from a low vantage point looking up managed to capture the exact moment Iron Man had actually flown into the mouth of the flying Chitauri and blew it up from within. The small amount of astonishment grew into genuine awe and amazement at seeing only 6 people, granted superhuman, but still 6 people hold back an army on their own. Steve had a bit of a fond glaze over his eyes at seeing the event that first brought the team together and cemented the bond they had together since that harrowing experience. Taking a moment to gaze over those watching, it was at this moment that Steve's eyes landed on the face of Chancellor Palpatine. Steve's expression grew stoic suddenly, eyeing the Chancellor as he continued to observe the old recordings of the Avengers. While he shared similar expressions with many of those present, it was his eyes that truly startled Steve. There was a hunger to them, a deceit that he feels like he'd seen it before. Shaking his head, trying to dissuade himself from his thought trajectory, he turned his attention back to the meeting at hand. He gestured for Scott to put his phone away and address their audience once more. After that day, the Avengers were formed though we all went on our own separate ways. Steve said. We reconvened a few years after encountering various threats across the world on our own, realizing the growing number of threats our world faced. So we decided on remaining as a team in full, taking a more proactive role in safeguarding our world. And you two are new members then? Mace said, directing his question to Falcon and Ant-Man. More or less, Sam said with a shrug. After the first incarnation of Avengers prevented another world-ending event, it went through a reshuffling of its members. Some stepped down, sadly one went missing, the other left on a separate quest, and we got ourselves a new team now. An entirely new team. Anakin said in clear befuddlement. Aside from myself and Black Widow, the Avengers since then has had 7 new members. Steve said. That is rather radical of a change. Plo Koon noted. To restructure your team such an extent. I think it plays to our team's greatest strength honestly. Steve said with conviction. Anyone who is willing, who knows what we fight for can join the team. Our job, our duty is to be the sword and shield for Earth, and protect it together from threats beyond what one man can do on their own. Then there are 9 of you right now then. Windu said. You mention yourself and this widow along with 7 others. And 3 stand before us right now. Plo Koon said. Which means there are 6 other Avengers we need to find. Sam said firmly. We don't know how to find them though. Scott admitted straight away. Steve and Sam found me by dumb luck honestly. But we know now there's a galaxy out there. And God knows where the rest of our friends are. Then I say it's settled then. Chancellor Palpatine spoke up excitedly almost. I would like to offer you the aid of the Republic and the GD in finding your friends. What? Was everyone's response. Chancellor. Anakin spoke first. What are you doing? What's it look like I'm doing my boy? Palpatine said pleasantly. I'm offering assistance to those in need. And consider this a way of me repaying you for my undying gratitude for your heroism on Naboo. If these other Avengers are anything like you 3 alone they are worth looking for. I actually agree with the Chancellor. Obi-Wan found himself saying. The 3 of you have done a great service to the Republic without asking for anything in return. I believe in one's actions over what they say and the 3 of you helped where you were not asked for. Hey now, let's not all just jump to conclusions here. Steve now said in a slight commanding tone. Look, I truly am grateful that we were able to help those in need at that time, but there's the fact that we are now roped into a war, and to be honest, I don't think that's something any of us truly want. Yoda hummed thoughtfully. A GD master speak, you do. Great strength of heart, mind and body, you possess, Captain Rogers. And I do believe I am in your debt for helping in saving myself and Commander Blythe during the battle on Naboo. Ila Sakura stated, getting an affirming nod from said commander. You guys also helped save a lot of our brothers' lives on Naboo. Captain Rex said with appreciation. I think we can spare some time in helping you guys out. Can't argue that. Commander Cody concurred. The Force, Yoda said aloud, facing the Avengers, pulls us to you. It has. A great change has occurred. At the center point of it, the Avengers appear to be. But the will of the Force, it appears that we must aid you as you have aided us already. Kit Fisto said with a grin. I think it would be pretty great to be helping out real heroes. Ahsoka said excitedly. Hey Snips, I'm hurt. Snip stuck her tongue out playfully at her master. I too wish to help. Padme said with determination. Like Palpatine said, you saved my home planet, including my sister and niece. I can't thank you enough for that. And you saved our lives from an assassin. Organa pointed out. Don't think I won't do my part in repaying that debt. Geez, what is this? Positive Price is Right. Sam joked, hiding his overwhelmed demeanor at the whole scene. Next thing you'll be telling us is that we've won a free ship. That can be arranged. Organa humored. I was kidding. Sam said until he paused and looked up at the senator. Wait, for real? Alright, let's not get too excited there, Sam. Steve lightly reprimanded. Still, I know this feels sudden in what you're doing, but thank you. If we really do find our friend's cause of you, then we can't thank you enough. Important, this task has become. Yoda said, looking forward to Rogers. The will of the Force has spoken. Never before has it been clearer defined. Help you we must, for in turn you shall help us. The GD Grandmaster offered a clawed hand to Steve Rogers, who promptly kneeled down to Yoda's level and shook the offered hand. Thank you, Grandmaster Yoda, Steve said graciously. A change in the air was felt, now more so than ever. All Force-sensitive beings present within the room could feel it to their very cores. A great shift within the galaxy will happen, and these Avengers, these Earth's mightiest heroes, they're the catalysts that will set everything into motion. Just one question. Scott piped up, cutting off the tensions building in the room. Can somebody please explain to me this whole Force stuff, cause I'm starting to feel a bit light-headed at thinking about it for too long. That broke the rather intense atmosphere, and humored air filled the room now, with some chuckling at the abrupt question among them being Scott himself. Yeah, but seriously, what is it? Well, I think it's time you guys sat down then. Anakin teased. This is gonna take a while as well. And there we have it, folks, another one down. This one is much shorter and really not as important aside from exposition sakes. Really, it took me a while in trying to figure as to how to go about the first official meetings between these factions, so this came to mind. And you know what else? This is a bit off topic, but when you look at it and it's kinda obvious, the Force in many ways is the ultimate plot mover most of the time. It's always about the Force, and I don't know where I'm going with this, but I just had it pop in my head. Yada yada yada, I'm rambling here. Before I go though, there's this. The eyes slowly opened to stare at the pitch-black night sky, showing the endless expanse of space. He felt his entire body was sore right now, but honestly now wasn't the time to be laying down after that light show. Grunting, he forced himself to sit up while the sounds of the suit powering up was heard. Feeling a bit at ease knowing his suit was functioning at full capacity as it was displayed on his HUD, Colonel James Rhodes aka War Machine got to his feet, having his helmet flipped back to reveal his tired expression. Looking around, Rhodey found himself in the middle of a barren wasteland, with craters littering the entire area for as far as the eye could see. Only one thing came to mind, which he verbalized a moment later. Where in the hell am I?